I'm joined now by Scott Stein, the editor of consumer publication CNET. And Scott, this is an incredibly exciting time for people in the tech world. Just tomorrow, the new Nintendo Switch 2 will be launching, and you are one of the lucky few people who has had the opportunity to get your hands on it a little bit early. So why don't you start with that? Talk about, as one of those lucky few, what has your experience been like ahead of everybody else?
Yeah, so the Switch has been out for 8 years now, and it's been an incredibly successful game console. At the same time, it feels like it's running games a little more sluggishly than some newer things like Steam Deck, and it doesn't play games quite as well as like PS5 and Xbox, of course. But the Switch 2 feels like a much needed update. It feels like it's playing games that feel more smooth, the graphics look better, the controllers feel better. It has built-in chat and the camera connectivity is actually really fun, more than I thought. It can actually split the camera feed from different people and combine it into the game, to look at um, things in the same room and incorporate them, which I haven't really seen done in other game consoles. So it all adds up to something that's a lot of fun, but there are so few new games right now. And right now, I've just been playing Mario Kart World, waiting some more games to play uh, that should be hitting tonight. That, it really feels like you can wait on it. And I think that if you're really excited to get it, it's not a bad thing to get it all right now. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I think it's definitely something that it's going to take probably a year for Nintendo to really build up a really unique library to make this feel like a true must get thing.
Absolutely. And I think that obviously the question you've been following this in the lead up since they announced that the Switch 2 would come
Yeah.
out. Um, you've talked about the technological differences between the first Switch and this new one, the different capabilities. Talk more about that. And since you've had a chance to actually experience it, what are they? What are the differences?
Yeah. One of the things inside is a new NVIDIA chip, and NVIDIA's CEO Jensen, he just went made a video about talking about the new features on this chip and what make it unique. I think it's something that maybe over time we're going to start seeing more of those features come out. One thing clearly is that it's better at upscaling. It's better at bringing things up to 4K resolution. It's better at making graphics look crisper and smoother and better. But also, I think the stuff it's doing with the camera is interesting, and I think that's happening on the chip where it's pulling out different video feeds and combining them. And while that's not stuff that you may necessarily want to do now, it shows maybe that the chip could do more interesting stuff in games later. Um, I also think it's interesting that game chat is so embedded inside the Switch too. It really is just audio and video chat, and you could just start it instantly, and people can be talking. But because it's now built in and organic, I think there's a lot of different ways you could go with that in games. I think it'll be fun to have games where you're kind of in a game show, participating and chatting, and I think it could change a lot of ideas in games that haven't been thought of yet. And right now, it's kind of like a hangout. I only got to demo it briefly, and I'm waiting for more people to have game chat. Um, so, I think those are the big things that stand out technologically. And the thing is, a lot of people don't need better graphics. A lot of people don't need slightly nicer looking graphics. I think we're gonna have to see a little more of what it can do, um, that'll truly be unique here. But I think it's well set up to last like a handful of years, including game streaming. I bet this could do. There's more game streaming where you don't have to download it. That's becoming a trend in tech, and I think this system will probably be able to do that a lot better.
Absolutely. And as somebody who has anticipated this launch for a while, you heard about the features it had to offer, you've got your hands on it. Is there anything that maybe didn't live up to the expectation of what you thought?
Yeah, I would say I really like when Nintendo gets weird. I like whimsy. I like surprise. Nintendo has had moments that have been really odd over the years and things that have really come out of left field. So far, the Switch 2 feels pretty much like a better version of the Switch. And right now, there's not a lot that's really, really surprising me. I like that you can use the new controllers as mice, although there aren't games that take advantage of that yet. But you'll be able to, roll them around on tables and move them, and that could also be for create some interesting games. I'd be curious to know if there are going to be other plug-in accessories and extras. whether there are other peripherals like the camera that Nintendo could cook up, and maybe not just peripherals, but just yeah, new types of games. Right now, Nintendo is really going for more of the same in the sense you got Mario Kart, you got Donkey Kong, you got very recognizable game properties. Nintendo will take swings on more unique games sometimes. When Pikmin first came out, or Animal Crossing. I remember when that first came out, and I'm hoping they do a few more things like that. Something where you go like a Splatoon, where you go, oh wow, I didn't expect this coming from Nintendo, and this is really fun. I think they need to take swings at that because right now it is feeling a little bit safe.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you mentioned some of these technological add-ons like the camera and the Pro controllers. Now, those are additional purchases, aren't they, in addition to
Yes,
buying the console itself? What do you think of those? Do you think that those are something that people buying the Switch should purchase right along with it, or should they wait on those add-ons? What do you think?
I think the camera is fun enough so far that it's not a must get right away, but I think it's one of the most interesting things to play around with. And at $55, I think it is. It's not the most expensive accessory. I think you can also use the Switch with other plug-in cameras. So I haven't tested that yet, but you might want to just like if you happen to have a webcam or something, plug it in, see if it works, and maybe you might be surprised, that could work too. I think the Pro controllers are always a nice alternative. At $85, it's really expensive now. And that being said, I think considering the Joy-Con pair now is $95, I think. Um, you might get that instead of that. You do need them for extra players. So I think that's a little bit of a tough balance. Luckily, there aren't that many other peripherals for this right now, but they add up. I think if you're getting the Switch, could be up to $500 with the game, and then you're getting controllers are running almost $100 each. Uh, yeah, it adds up.
Absolutely. And on CNET, you refer to the Switch 2 as what you call an iterative upgrade. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it is reminds me more of what's happening in phones and tablets than and even in consoles. I think PlayStation and Xbox are exactly in this format where you go from PlayStation 3 to a PlayStation 4 and when you get or a PlayStation 5, when you get to that new console, you can play all the old games. It's better, but you're like, oh, I'm still in the PlayStation. Nintendo had for a long time really kept changing it up. The Wii was completely different. It was something where you go, what is this controller that it's using? And then the Wii U had this like weird gamepad that people were trying to understand. And the Nintendo DS, when it came out, had the dual screen. And then the Switch was different. But now, this is like a true sequel that they're doing. That it's one of their first. I think it's their first two console. So it feels like the next iPhone, the next iPad, the next whatever. And I don't think that's bad. I think that's just the way Nintendo thinks makes the most sense right now because you don't want to give up on what's good about the Switch. But I don't think you need to shift over from the Switch yet. And I think Nintendo's even acknowledging that. I think there's a sense that you could wait another year or two and upgrade whenever you want and still be able to play a lot of the games.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Right. Especially
Yeah.
when it's selling that many. And I think Nintendo's had some times where they've reinvented the wheel when they didn't need to. And and here they're clearly making a decision of going with what works and what other game manufacturers are continuing to mimic. There's a lot of PC gaming handhelds now that are on the rise. I think over the next few years you're going to see more of this. I think Sony, which already is working in the space, Microsoft, which is supposed to be working on some sort of a handheld Xbox. I'm sure a lot of these will dock with TVs. So, Nintendo feels like it's competing now with a lot of people in the landscape that are following their footsteps.
Absolutely. And you hinted a couple times in our conversation about the idea that some of the coolest parts of the Nintendo Switch 2, the new games that will be coming out with it, have yet to come. They're not out yet. You expect them to come out in possibly the next year or so. What do you expect? I know that there's probably no definitive way of knowing what's to come, but what do you expect from Nintendo in terms of these new games?
Well, they've definitely already, coming out later in the year, they'll have Metroid Prime 4, which has been long expected. And they'll have a new Pokemon game, and they have the Donkey Kong game that's coming. Couple of big, obvious omissions, though. No big new Mario game, except for, I mean, Mario Kart is a Mario game, but I mean, like a real, 3D Mario game. No new Zelda game. Although Nintendo has made a fair amount of Zeldas in the past few years. But in the past, those have been big moments for Nintendo and new consoles. I would expect that they're going to announce something in that territory sometime. I think those are really big for people getting the new system. At the same time, they probably don't want to alienate all the people who have Switches and that may not be upgrading yet. But I think those, I would expect updates, again, to things like Animal Crossing, which has been a huge success for them. And a lot of people want a new one. And with game chat, that could get really interesting. Um, I want to see things like, there's some B-side things like F-Zero. It's a futuristic racing game that would be really fun. I think there's a lot of stuff in their collection, like Star Fox, that they could dig into. But I think there's a lot of room for them to develop a totally new thing and have the confidence to say, let's do that, especially now since Nintendo has theme parks and movies and everything else. I think developing new IP and new ideas feels like a really important thing for them to keep doing.
Hmm. Absolutely. And we're on the precipice of this launch. It'll be coming out at midnight tonight. And there's people lining up outside of tech stores across the country waiting to get their hands, to be the first people to get their hands on this new console. You've kind of said that it's okay to wait. There's no rush. You don't need to be waiting in these lines. You can get it when you get it. It's not too dissimilar from the old one. Is there any reason why people should be clamoring to get their hands on it?
That people shouldn't be clamoring.
Should be
Um,
clamoring.
oh, should be.
Hmm.
I think, at its price, I look at a wide range of prices on tech. So affordability is all relative. At the price of $450 to $500, this is still in a territory where it's a reasonable splurge. I
Hmm.
think to me, it's like I've seen things that cost $1,000 and cost more than that. And 500 is still a lot of money. Um, but I think that when you think about trips or other things people do or concerts, I think it's like if this is the thing you've been setting your eye on and you think it's going to be a lot of fun, there's a lot of fun to be had with it. I think it's really cool. And I think you could go, you can go a lot worse than doing this. Like, I think it's a really solid product from the little time that I've spent with it. But yeah, I just want to kind of ease people's FOMO at the same time to say that there are some experiences I've seen in VR, like when the first Switch came out, some things where you go, my goodness, this is so cool. You're not going to get this anywhere else. Um, and, that's not happening right now with this, but that's okay. It's giving you more of what you might like. And I think if you've really been playing a ton of Switch and that is your system, I think you're going to appreciate all the updates a lot, because you'll notice them.
Awesome. That's wonderful insight. Scott Stein, editor of CNET, thank you so much for talking with us ahead of this very anticipated launch.
Yeah, good luck out there. I hope people success in the lines and the sales. I know, and I heard about canceled pre-orders, so it's all wild.